The storm hit the coastal town of Clearwater Bay without warning, transforming a pleasant September evening into chaos. Owen Mitchell stood on his weathered deck, watching the sky turn from dusky purple to an ominous black-green. Wind whipped through the marina below, setting boat rigging clanging like discordant bells. "Dad, come inside!" his son Theo called from the doorway of their small beach cottage. At 8 years old, Theo had lived through enough coastal storms to know when to be afraid. Owen was about to comply when he heard it, a sound that cut through the wind and thunder. A child's scream, high and terrified, coming from the water. His eyes scanned the turbulent bay. There, about 50 yards from shore, a small sailboat pitched violently in the swells. Even from this distance, Owen could see two figures clinging to the mast. The boat listed dangerously, taking on water with each crashing wave. "Theo, call 911!" Owen shouted, already running toward the beach. "Tell them there's a boat in distress at the North Marina." "Dad, no! Don't go out there!" But Owen was already at the water's edge, kicking off his shoes. He'd been a rescue swimmer in the Coast Guard before Theo was born, before his wife died, and he'd traded adrenaline for the quieter life of a marina mechanic. The skills remained, dormant but not forgotten, waiting for a moment like this. The water struck him like a physical blow, cold, angry, pulling him in a dozen directions at once. Rain pelted his face, making it nearly impossible to see. Owen forced his breathing to steady, remembering his training. Panic kills. Stay focused. Swim smart. The 50 yards felt like 50 miles. Waves threw him backward. Currents tried to drag him under. His shoulder, injured years ago and never quite the same, screamed in protest. But Owen pushed forward, stroke after stroke, keeping his eyes on the failing sailboat. As he drew closer, he could make out details. A woman, maybe 30, dark hair plastered to her face, wrapped one arm around the mast and the other around a small boy, no more than 5, clutching a sodden teddy bear. The child was crying, his little face a mask of terror. "Hold on!" Owen yelled, though the wind nearly tore the words away. "I'm coming!" The woman's eyes found his, wide with desperate hope and fear. "Please! My son! Save my son first!" Owen reached the boat just as another massive wave crashed over them. The sailboat lurched, and he heard the sickening crack of wood splitting. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before the vessel went under completely. "Listen to me," Owen shouted, grabbing onto the boat's rail. "We're all getting out of here, but I need you to trust me. What's your name?" "Victoria, this is Henry." "Okay, Victoria, I'm Owen. I'm going to take Henry first, get him to shore, then come back for you. Can you hold on for 3 more minutes?" She looked like she wanted to argue, but another wave made the decision for her. The boat groaned, tilting further. "Yes, just please save my baby." Owen held out his arms. "Henry, buddy, I need you to let go of your mom and hold on to me. Can you do that? I promise I'll keep you safe." The little boy shook his head frantically, his grip on his mother tightening. The teddy bear slipped from his grasp, disappearing into the churning water. Henry's wail of anguish cut through the storm. "Mr. Bear!" he sobbed. In that instant, Owen understood. The bear wasn't just a toy. It was this child's anchor, his comfort in a terrifying world. And now it was gone. "Henry," Owen said, making his voice as calm and steady as he could manage, "I know you're scared, but I'm really, really good at swimming, and I'm going to get you back to land. When we get there, my son Theo has lots of stuffed animals. I bet he'd share one with you. But first, you need to be brave for your mom. Can you do that?" The boy's crying quieted to hiccups. He looked at his mother, who nodded through her own tears. "It's okay, sweetheart. Go." "With Owen. I'll be right behind you." Henry released his death grip on Victoria and reached for Owen with trembling arms. Owen pulled him close, positioning the boy on his back. "Wrap your arms around my neck, not too tight, and your legs around my waist, just like a piggyback ride. Don't let go, no matter what." The swim back was even harder with Henry's added weight and panic. The boy screamed when waves washed over them, his small arms threatening to choke Owen. Owen's injured shoulder felt like it was on fire, and his lungs burned from the exertion. But he thought of Theo watching from shore, and he thought of Victoria alone on that sinking boat, and he kicked harder. His feet finally scraped sand. Hands reached out. Neighbors, marina workers, People who'd seen the disaster unfolding. Someone took Henry from his back, wrapping the sobbing child in blankets. Owen barely registered their words of amazement and concern. "Stay with him!" Owen gasped, already turning back to the water. "I have to get his mother." "Owen, the Coast Guard is 2 minutes out," someone yelled. "Wait for them." But 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours. Owen could see that the sailboat was nearly submerged, only the mast still visible. Victoria clung to it, her strength clearly fading. The second swim was worse than the first. Owen's muscles trembled with exhaustion, and the cold had seeped deep into his bones. His vision blurred, and for a terrifying moment, he lost sight of the mast. Then lightning flashed, illuminating the scene, and he saw her. Victoria's grip had slipped. She was in the water now, struggling to keep her head above the swells. Owen reached her just as she went under. He dove, grabbed her jacket, and hauled her to the surface. She gasped and choked, too weak to help herself. "I've got you," Owen said, though he wasn't sure he had anything left to give. "Just float. Let me do the work." The swim back was a blur of agony and determination. Owen's body moved on autopilot, driven by something deeper than physical strength. In his semi-delirious state, he thought of his wife Melissa, who died giving birth to Theo. He'd been helpless then, unable to save the person he loved most. But not today. Today he could save someone's mother, someone's reason for living. The beach erupted in cheers when Owen's feet found sand again. Coast Guard personnel rushed into the surf, taking Victoria from his arms. Owen collapsed onto the wet sand, his chest heaving, every muscle screaming. Through the chaos, he heard a child's voice, "Mommy! Mommy!" and Victoria's reply, weak but clear, "I'm okay, baby. I'm right here." Someone helped Owen to his feet, a paramedic, asking questions he could barely process. He scanned the crowd until he found Theo, his son's face streaked with tears. "Dad!" Theo crashed into him despite the paramedic's protests. "You saved them! You really saved them!" Owen wrapped his good arm around his son, letting the boy's warmth seep into his frozen core. "We're okay. Everyone's okay." The paramedics insisted on taking Owen to the hospital along with Victoria and Henry. Owen's shoulder had been partially dislocated in the ordeal, and he had hypothermia, but he was alive, and more importantly, so were the people he'd pulled from the water. In the hospital waiting room hours later, after Owen's shoulder had been reset and he'd been cleared to go home, Victoria appeared. She'd cleaned up, though her eyes were still red-rimmed with exhaustion and emotion. Henry clung to her hand, wrapped in a blanket too large for him. "Mr. Owen," Henry said, his voice small but steady. Victoria's voice broke when she tried to speak. I don't have words. You risked your life. For strangers. My son is alive because of you. I'm alive because of you." Owen shifted uncomfortably, his arm in a sling. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Victoria said firmly. "Most people would have waited for professionals. Most people would have made the safe choice. You made the brave one." She paused, seeming to gather herself. "I need to know. Is there anything I can do? Anything at all to thank you?" "Just see that your boy grows up happy," Owen said, smiling at Henry. "That's thanks enough." Victoria nodded, though something in her expression suggested the conversation wasn't over. She and Henry left shortly after, and Owen returned home with Theo, collapsing into bed despite it being only 8 in the evening. The next morning, Owen woke to Theo shaking his good shoulder. Dad, you have to come see this." "Theo, what?" Owen's complaint died in his throat as he looked out the window. Docked at the marina, gleaming impossibly white in the morning sun, was a luxury yacht. Not a sailboat, but a proper motor yacht, the kind Owen had only ever worked on from the outside. And standing on their small deck, looking composed despite the previous night's trauma, was Victoria. Owen threw on clothes and stumbled outside, Theo bouncing excitedly beside him. "Is that because of yesterday? Is that Lady Rich? Dad, what's happening?" Victoria smiled as they approached, though Owen could see the weight of emotion behind it. "Good morning. I hope I'm not intruding, but I wanted to speak with you before I left town." "Left town?" Owen said, still processing the yacht's presence. "I thought, what is all this? May I explain inside? It's a rather long story." They sat at Owen's modest kitchen table, Victoria looking surreally out of place in her designer clothes amid the clutter of breakfast dishes and Theo's homework. She accepted coffee gratefully and began her tale. My name is Victoria Castellano. My family owns Castellano Maritime Industries. We build commercial ships and luxury vessels. I inherited the company when my father died 2 years ago. She paused, her hands tightening around the coffee mug. Yesterday I was supposed to be at a board meeting in Seattle, but I've been struggling with everything. The company, being a single mother, the pressure. I wanted one day, just one day, to feel like a normal person doing something simple with my son. So, you took a sailboat out, Owen said gently. A rental. I used to sail as a child, but I'd forgotten how quickly weather can change on the water. I was showing off for Henry, trying to be fun mom instead of stressed executive mom, and I nearly got us both killed. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You saved us when I couldn't save myself, when I'd failed my son in the worst possible way. Owen reached across the table with his good hand. Hey, you held on. You kept Henry safe until help arrived. That's not failure, that's courage. Victoria's eyes glistened. That yacht out there, it's yours if you want it. Owen nearly spat out his coffee. I'm sorry, what? I looked you up this morning. Owen Mitchell, former Coast Guard rescue swimmer, honorably discharged after injury. Current employment as a marina mechanic making barely above minimum wage. Single father raising his son in a rental property that should have been condemned years ago. She held up a hand as Owen started to protest. I'm not judging. I'm observing. You're a hero who got a raw deal from life, and I want to make it right. I can't accept a yacht, Owen said firmly. That's not why I went into the water, I know that. Which is exactly why I want to give it to you. Victoria leaned forward. But, if the yacht makes you uncomfortable, there are alternatives. I'm opening a new safety training facility for our maritime workers. I need someone to run it, someone with real experience, someone who understands that training isn't just about checking boxes but about preparing people for the moment when everything goes wrong. The salary would be substantial, with benefits, college fund for Theo, and the position is based here, so you wouldn't have to uproot your son. Owen sat back, stunned. That's incredibly generous. But you don't know me. I could be terrible at that job. You dove into a storm that terrified experienced sailors. You swam out twice, with an injured shoulder, in conditions that would have killed most people. You convinced my terrified 5-year-old to trust a stranger in the midst of his worst nightmare. And according to what I've learned from your neighbors and co-workers, you've spent the last 8 years being both father and mother to your son, while working 60-hour weeks to keep a roof over his head. Victoria's voice was steady now, certain. I know enough. Theo, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. Dad, can we keep the yacht? Despite everything, Owen laughed. Buddy, I don't think... Actually, Victoria interjected with a small smile, I was hoping Theo might help me convince you, because there's one more thing. She pulled out an envelope. Inside are 2 tickets to a special event next month at our Seattle headquarters. We're launching a new rescue vessel designed specifically for storm response. I'd like you both to be my guests of honor. Henry would love to see Theo again. He's been asking about the boy whose dad is a superhero all morning. Theo's eyes went wide. Can we, Dad? Please? Owen looked at his son's eager face, at Victoria's sincere expression, at the yacht bobbing gently in the marina outside. He thought about his cramped cottage with its leaky roof, about the precarious balance of bills and worry that defined his life. He thought about Melissa, who'd made him promise before she died to give Theo every opportunity, every chance at a good life. But mostly, he thought about the feeling of Henry's small arms around his neck, of Victoria's gasping breath as he'd pulled her from the water, of being needed in the way he'd been trained for, of making a difference when it mattered most. The job, he heard himself say. I'll take the job. The yacht is too much, but the job... Yes, if you're serious. Victoria's smile transformed her face completely. Serious. I'll have my lawyers draw up a contract by the end of the week. But, Owen added firmly, I'm not a charity case. I'll earn every penny, and if I'm not the right fit, you fire me. No guilt, no obligation beyond what I've actually contributed. Deal? Victoria extended her hand. Deal. As they shook, Theo whooped with joy, and Owen felt something shift inside him, a weight he'd been carrying for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand without it. Later, after Victoria had left and Theo had finally stopped bouncing around the house long enough to eat lunch, Owen stood on his deck, looking at the spot where he'd stood the previous night. The bay was calm now, glittering peacefully in the afternoon sun, giving no hint of the violence it had contained mere hours before. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Victoria, he realized, who must have gotten his contact from the marina office. The message contained a photo of Henry, grinning and holding a new teddy bear, along with words that made Owen's throat tight. He says this one is named Owen, and he wants to be a rescue swimmer when he grows up. Thank you for giving my son his future back. Thank you for giving me mine. See you in Seattle. 5. Owen saved the photo, then called Theo out onto the deck. His son appeared, still chattering excitedly about yachts in Seattle and the new job. Hey buddy, Owen said, pulling Theo close with his good arm. You know yesterday was scary, right? I need you to understand that what I did was dangerous, and I was lucky to make it back. Theo's enthusiasm dimmed slightly, his expression becoming more serious. I know, Dad. I was really scared, but you helped people who needed help. That's what heroes do. That's what people do, Owen corrected gently. When you see someone in trouble and you have the ability to help, you help. Not because you're special or brave, but because we're all in this together. We take care of each other. Is that what Mom would have wanted? Owen felt the familiar ache of loss, but it was softer now, wrapped in gratitude for the time they'd had. Yeah, Theo, that's exactly what she would have wanted. She always said the best life is the one where you show up for people. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the boats bob in the marina, the lighthouse blink its steady rhythm, the gulls wheel overhead. Owen's shoulder throbbed, his muscles were stiff and sore, but he felt more alive than he had in years. Sometimes, he reflected, life came down to a single moment of choice. Stand on the safe shore or dive into the storm. Play it safe or risk everything for strangers who needed help. And sometimes when you chose courage over comfort, the universe found a way to reward that choice in ways you never could have imagined. But the reward wasn't really the yacht or the job or the new beginning Victoria had offered, as grateful as he was for all of it. The real reward was knowing that Henry and Victoria were alive, that a little boy would grow up with his mother, that one desperate night hadn't ended in tragedy. Everything else was just the universe's way of saying thank you. Come on, Owen said, ruffling Theo's hair. Let's go look at what Seattle has to offer. If we're moving up in the world, we should probably figure out what that world looks like. Theo cheered and raced inside to find the laptop. Owen followed more slowly, pausing at the door to take one last look at the peaceful bay. Somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, a storm was always waiting. But somewhere, too, there were people ready to face it, to dive in when others needed them, to choose courage when fear would be easier. Owen intended to be one of those people, and he intended to teach his son to be one too. The yacht could wait, the job could wait. Right now, there was a boy who needed lunch, homework that needed checking, and a future that suddenly looked brighter than it had in years. Owen smiled and went inside, closing the door behind him, leaving the storm-tossed past on the other side and stepping into whatever came next.